started. Fantastic. Okay, the book we are reading today is called Pause, and it's by Lewis Usher, who's written some fantastic books in the past. You may have read them before. No handout, any questions? Chapter. There is no lake at Camp Green Lake, which seems suspicious because that's what it's called. There was once, though, a very large lake, the largest lake in Texas. That was over 100 years ago, but now it's just a dry, flat wasteland. There used to be a town at Camp Green Lake as well. The town shriveled, though, and died up along with the lake and all the people that lived there. During the summertime, temperatures in daytime hovers around 95 degrees in the shade. If you can find shade, though, there's not much shade in a big, dry lake. The only trees are the two old oaks on the eastern edge of the lake. The hammock is stretched between the two trees, and a log cabin stands behind them. The campers, though, are forbidden to lie in the hammock. It belongs to the warden. The warden owns the shade. Out on the lake, rattlesnakes and scorpions find shade under rocks and in the holes dug by the campers. Here, 5b, is a good rule to remember about rattlesnakes and scorpions. If you don't bother them, they will not bother you. Usually, being bitten by a scorpion or even a rattlesnake is not the worst thing that can happen to you. You won't die. Usually. Sometimes a camper will be bitten by a scorpion or even a small rattlesnake. They'll get to spend a day or two resting in the tent instead of having to dig a hole on the lake. But, ladies and gentlemen, you do not want to be bitten by a yellow spotted lizard. That is the worst thing that can happen to you. You will die a slow and painful death, always. If you get bitten by a yellow spotted lizard, you might as well go into the shade of the oak tree and lie in the hammock. There is nothing anyone can do for you anymore. The reader is probably asking, or 5b are probably thinking, why would anyone go to Camp Green Lake? Most campers weren't given a choice. Camp Green Lake is a camp for bad boys. If you take a bad boy and make him dig a hole every day in the hot sun, it will turn him into a good boy. That's what some people thought. Stanley was given a choice. The judge said, you may go to jail, or you may go to Camp Green Lake. Stanley was from a poor family. He'd never been to camp before. Stanley Yelnats was the only passenger on the bus, not counting the driver or the guard. The guard sat next to the driver with his seat turned around facing Stanley. A rifle lay across his lap. Stanley was sitting about 10 rows back, handcuffed to his armrest. His backpack lay on the seat next to him. It contained his toothbrush, toothpaste, a box of stationery his mother had given, and he promised to write to her at least once a week. He looked out of the window, although there wasn't much to see. Mostly fields of hay and cotton. He was on a long bus ride to nowhere. The bus wasn't air-conditioned, and the hot, heavy air was almost as stifling as the handcuffs. Stanley and his parents had tried to pretend he was just going away for camp for a while, like rich kids do. When Stanley was younger, he used to play with stuffed animals and pretend the animals were at camp. Camp fun and games, he called it. Sometimes he'd have them play soccer with a marble. Other times they'd run an obstacle course or go bungee jumping off a table, tied to a broken rubber band. Now, though, Stanley tried to pretend he was going to camp fun and games. Maybe at least he'd make some friends, he thought. At least he'd get to swim in the lake. He didn't have any friends at home. He was overweight, and the kids at the middle school often teased him about his size. Even his teachers made cruel comments without realizing. On his last day of school, his math teacher, Mrs. Bell, taught ratios. As an example, she chose the heaviest kid in class and the lightest kid in class and had them weigh themselves. Stanley weighed 3 times as much as the other boy. Mrs. Bell wrote the ratio on the board, 3:1, unaware of how much embarrassment she had caused both of them. Stanley was arrested later that day. He looked at the guard who slumped in his seat and wondered if he'd fallen asleep. The guard was wearing sunglasses so Stanley couldn't see his eyes. Stanley wasn't a bad kid. He was innocent of the crime for which he was convicted. He'd just been in the wrong place, at the wrong time. And it was all because of his no good, dirty, rotten, pig-stealing great-grandfather. He smiled. It was a family joke. Whenever anything went wrong, they always blamed Stanley's no good, dirty, rotten, pig-stealing great-great-grandfather. Supposedly, he had a great-great-grandfather who had stolen a pig from a one-legged gypsy, and she put a curse on him and all of his descendants. Stanley and his parents didn't believe in curses, of course, but when everything went wrong, it felt good to be able to blame someone. And oh my goodness, things went wrong a lot. They always seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. He looked out the window at the vast emptiness. He watched the rise and the fall of a telephone wire. In his mind, he could hear his father's gruff voice singing softly to him. If only the woodpecker sighs, the bark on the tree was a little bit softer. While the wolf waits below, hungry and lonely, he cries to the moon. If only, if only. It was a song his father used to sing to him. The melody was sweet and sad, but Stanley's favourite part was when his father would howl the word moo. The bus hit a small bump. Oh! And the guard sat up, instantly alert. Stanley's father was an inventor. To be a successful inventor, you need 3 things. Intelligence, perseverance, that means that resilience, and just a little bit of luck. Stanley's father was smart, and he had a lot of perseverance. Once he started a project, he'd work on it years, often going days without sleep. He just never had any luck. Every time the experiment failed, Stanley could hear him cursing his dirty, rotten, pig-stealing great-grandfather. Stanley's father was also named Stanley Yelnats. Stanley's father's full name was Stanley Yelnats III. Our Stanley is Stanley Yelnats IV. Everyone in the family had always liked the fact that Stanley Yelnats was spelled the same way forward as backward. So they kept on naming their son Stanley. Stanley was an only child, as well as all the other Stanley Yelnats before him. All of them had something in common. Despite their awful luck, they remained hopeful. As Stanley's father used to say, I learn from failure. But perhaps that was part of the curse as well. If Stanley's father always wasn't hopeful, then maybe it wouldn't hurt him as much every time their hopes were crushed. Not every Stanley's been a failure, Stanley's mother would point out. Whenever Stanley and his father became so discouraged, they actually started to believe in the curse. The first Stanley Yelnats, the great-grandfather, made a fortune in the stock market. He couldn't have been too unlucky. At such times, you neglect to mention the bad luck befell to Stanley Yelnats. He lost his entire fortune when he was moving from New York to California. His stagecoach was robbed by the outlaw, Kissing Bear Kate Barlow. If it weren't for that, Stanley's family would now be living in a mansion on a beach in California. Instead, they were crammed into a tiny apartment that smelt of burning rubber and foot odour. If only, if only. The apartment smelled the way it did because Stanley's father was trying to invent a way to recycle old trainers. The first person who finds a use for old sneakers, he said, would be a very rich man. It was the last project that led to Stanley's arrest. The bus ride had become increasingly bumpy because the road was no longer paved. Actually, Stanley would be impressed when he found out his great-grandfather had been robbed by the Kissing Kate Barlow. True, he preferred living on the beach in California, but it's still quite cool to have someone in your family robbed by a famous outlaw. Kate Barlow didn't actually kiss Stanley's great-father. That would have been cool, but she only kissed the men she killed. Instead, she robbed him and left him stranded in the desert. He was lucky to survive. Stanley's mother was quick to point out. The bus was slowing down. The guard grunted as he stretched out his arms. Welcome to Camp Green Lake, said the driver. Stanley looked out at the dirty window. He couldn't see a lake. Hardly anything at all was green. That's good. I'll leave some instructions so no one knows how to do it.
We need to change these computers.
Oh, okay.
We
What's
need to change